All right. So you've given us a really interesting set of reports and articles on the global economy.
Yeah.
Looks like you're trying to get ahead of the curve in 2025.
Yeah. Well, you timed it perfectly.
Uh-huh.
We've got this World Economic Forum's Chief Economists Outlook report hot off the press from January 2025.
Okay.
And it's really a gold mine
Ah.
of insights from, leading economists all over the world.
Yeah.
So this gives us a really nice high-level view
Okay.
of what we can sort of expect.
So we're going to basically treat this as like our crystal ball for the global economy.
Yeah.
Hopefully a little more reliable than the kind you get at a carnival.
Right, right.
So we're going to unpack the most important trends, predictions from the report.
Yeah.
And we're going to weave in some of these other really fascinating data points from the articles you've provided.
Yeah.
And by the end of this deep dive, you'll be well equipped to impress.
Oh.
Even the most seasoned economics buff.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start with the big picture.
Sure.
What is the overall global economic outlook for 2025?
Well, the outlook overall is it's a little bit of a mixed bag, I would say.
Oh, right.
More than half of the economists surveyed predict a weakening of the global economy in 2025.
Okay, so that sounds a little bit ominous.
Yeah.
So is it just a universal downturn?
No.
Or are there some bright spots out there?
The report really highlights divergence as a key theme for 2025.
Okay.
So different regions are expected to perform quite differently.
So some economies are speeding up
Exactly.
and others are hitting the brakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so who are the winners and losers in this economic landscape?
Well, for example, the U.S. is actually expected to see robust growth.
Oh, wow. Right.
But on the flip side, nearly 75% of the economists predict weakness in Europe.
Okay, so two very different
Economic
realities unfolding simultaneously.
Right.
What is driving this split?
Well, it's really a confluence of factors.
Okay.
Firstly, how various countries responded to the pandemic. Some bounce back a little more quickly than others.
Yeah.
Second, the ongoing war in Ukraine continues to, send ripples through global markets, particularly impacting Europe.
Right.
And lastly, the potential for a new era of U.S. protectionism has everyone on edge.
So let's unpack the U.S. outlook a bit.
Sure.
Seems to be bucking the trend a little bit here.
Yeah.
And especially with the recent U.S. elections, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering,
absolutely,
what impact the new administration will have.
Yeah, it's a big question mark.
Yeah.
The report suggests a mixed bag for the U.S.
Okay.
The new administration's policies, particularly tax cuts and deregulation, could provide a short-term boost to growth.
Okay.
However, many economists express concerns about the long-term consequences of these policies.
So while some are optimistic about the short term, others are sounding the alarm bells.
Yeah.
What are the potential downsides they're highlighting?
Well, one major concern is inflation. Almost all the economists in the WEF report anticipate an increase in U.S. inflation, with some predicting a very sharp rise.
Isn't that the classic concern with tax cuts without corresponding spending cuts?
Precisely. And this brings us to another point.
Yeah.
The potential impact on public debt.
Right.
Increased spending coupled with tax cuts could lead to a ballooning deficit.
Yeah.
Interestingly, one of the articles you shared mentioned a new commission.
Oh, yeah.
The Department of Government Efficiency, aiming to drastically reduce spending. So whether they'll succeed or not is a big unknown.
That is a key storyline to watch for sure.
Absolutely.
So for the U.S., it's a potential boom, but with some potential bumps in the road ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
But let's zoom out a little bit.
Sure.
This U.S. focus is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
To really grasp where things are going, we need to consider how these trends fit into the broader global context.
Yeah.
The WEF report emphasizes another crucial theme: fragmentation.
Fragmentation, yes, very important.
So explain this to me a little bit.
Well, it's the idea that despite all this interconnectedness, the world is actually becoming more divided.
Okay.
And we're seeing this in various forms, from escalating trade wars to restrictions on the free movement of labor, and even limitations on data sharing across borders.
So it's not just about physical borders.
No.
It's also about barriers to the flow of goods,
exactly,
people, and information.
Yeah, it's all kinds of barriers.
So why should we care about fragmentation?
Well, this is a double-edged sword.
Okay.
On the one hand, it can lead to higher costs for consumers and businesses
Right.
as supply chains become more complex and regionalized.
All right.
But on the other hand, it could also spur innovation and domestic production
Oh, okay.
as countries become less reliant on global trade.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
It's not all doom and gloom, no.
There could be some unexpected upsides.
Right. And it's important to remember that economic shifts create both winners and losers.
Hmm.
Some businesses will thrive in this new environment while others will struggle to adapt.
Okay.
But one thing's for sure, fragmentation will force everyone to rethink traditional business models
Yeah.
and global partnerships.
Speaking of reshaping global partnerships, one of the articles you sent highlighted a potential
Oh, yeah.
100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles entering the U.S.
Right.
That sounds like a pretty stark example of how geopolitics is influencing trade.
Absolutely. And it ties directly into another key point from the Chief Economists' Outlook: trade wars.
Okay.
In fact,
Oh.
the report suggests we may already be in the midst of one.
Hold on. Are we talking full-blown trade war or just some
Yeah.
strategic skirmishes here and there?
It's no secret that protectionist policies like tariffs and import quotas have been on the rise for years.
Yeah.
And many experts believe that the new administration, with its focus on domestic manufacturing
Right.
and America First rhetoric, will likely intensify this trend.
So we're seeing this shift from a globalized, interconnected economy to one that's more regionalized and potentially more volatile.
Yeah, and potentially more volatile.
But if trade wars are creating so much turbulence, why are global trade volumes still expected to increase?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
While overall growth might slow way, we're seeing a shift in who countries are trading with.
Oh, okay.
The report highlights the rise of friendshoring,
Friendshoring.
where countries are prioritizing trade with allies even if it means slightly higher costs.
So it's like choosing to do business with your friends even if the shop down the street has a slightly better deal.
Uh-huh. I like that analogy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's about building more resilient supply chains and reducing reliance on
Okay.
potentially adversarial nations.
So while goods trading might face headwinds,
Yeah.
is there a silver lining amidst all this fragmentation and trade war talk?
There is, and it's a trend that I think holds immense potential: the rise of services trade.
Okay, let's break that down. What exactly does services trade mean?
Essentially, while we're seeing these increased barriers to the exchange of physical goods,
Yeah.
the trade of services, things like software development,
Mm-hmm.
consulting, online education, and even entertainment, is experiencing this surge in growth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So instead of shipping physical products across borders,
Exactly.
we're beaming services across the internet.
Right?
But why is this shift so significant?
This shift towards a service-based economy could be a real game changer, especially for developing economies.
Okay.
Services are often more labor-intensive than manufacturing,
Yeah.
meaning they can generate a substantial number of jobs.
Okay.
And with digitally delivered services experiencing the fastest growth,
Mm-hmm.
it's a trend worth watching closely.
So we've got a potential U.S. boom, but also the risk of inflation and rising debt,
Right.
a world that's becoming more fragmented,
Yeah.
but new opportunities emerging in services trade.
Yeah.
It seems like we're at the cusp of a major economic transformation.
We are indeed. And before we delve into the specific implications, for you and your future plans,
Okay.
I think it's worth highlighting a key takeaway that underpins everything we've discussed.
Yeah.
The global economic outlook is inherently uncertain.
Right.
Change is the only constant, and it will impact everyone.
No one can escape the winds of change, that's for sure.
Uh-huh. That's right.
So what does this mean for you, our listener?
Yeah.
How can you use this information to make smarter decisions about your personal finances or your career?
That's precisely what we'll explore next.
Okay.
We'll dive into some specific examples of how these trends might play out in your life.
Right.
And what you can do to prepare for this new economic reality.
Sounds good.
All right?
I'm ready for it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so knowing that there's a potential trade war brewing is one thing,
Right.
but how might it actually impact your wallet?
Right. Well, let's
That's what we're here to figure out.
yeah, let's go back to that potential 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles we touched on earlier.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone considering buying an EV, this could have a significant impact on your decision.
This is a prime example of how geopolitics can hit you right where it counts.
Yeah.
In your bank account.
Absolutely.
Those imported EVs could suddenly become a lot less attractive price-wise.
Precisely. And it's not just limited to cars. Think about all the goods we import from China.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from electronics and clothing to furniture.
Yeah.
If trade tensions continue to escalate, we could see prices climb across the board.
So what can the savvy consumer do to navigate this shifting landscape?
Well, this is where understanding those concepts of fragmentation and friendshoring becomes crucial.
Yeah.
Start paying closer attention to where the products you buy are manufactured.
Okay.
You might find that opting for goods that are produced domestically
Right.
or in allied countries, even if they come with a slightly higher price tag,
Yeah.
could actually save you money in the long run.
It's like casting a vote with your dollars.
Exactly.
Supporting businesses that align with your values,
Yeah,
and in this case, potentially your economic interests as well.
absolutely. Now
Yeah.
let's shift gears a little bit and delve into that silver lining we mentioned,
Okay.
the growth of services trade.
Yeah.
This is where things get particularly interesting, especially for anyone thinking about their career trajectory,
So not everyone's going to become a software developer or a consultant overnight.
right? But the key takeaway here is that the skill set needed to thrive in a more service-oriented economy
Okay.
is evolving. Think about skills like critical thinking,
Yeah.
problem-solving, communication, creativity.
Okay.
These are the abilities that will be in high demand regardless of your specific profession.
So even if your job isn't directly related to software or
Hmm.
consulting or
Right.
these more traditional service sectors, honing these core skills becomes even more valuable.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the burgeoning opportunities in entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah.
The rise of digitally delivered services is opening up this whole new world of possibilities
Mhm.
for starting and scaling your own business.
It's like the Wild West of the digital age.
Yeah.
Endless frontiers to explore.
Uh-huh. That's a good way to put it.
So for someone who might be considering launching a new venture,
Yeah.
what are some key things they should be paying attention to?
Well, first and foremost, think globally.
Okay.
With services, your potential customer base isn't limited by geographical boundaries.
Right.
You can reach customers anywhere in the world with an internet connection.
Makes sense.
Second, stay informed about the latest technological advancements.
Okay.
The digital landscape is constantly evolving, so you need to be able to adapt and innovate
Mm-hmm.
to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's all about continuous learning,
Exactly.
experimentation,
Yeah.
and maybe even brushing up on those coding skills.
It certainly can't hurt. Now, let's zoom out again and revisit that final provocative thought I left you with. The growing influence of geopolitics on the global economy.
Yeah, that's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it?
It is.
It feels like the rules of the game are changing right before our eyes,
Yeah.
and it's hard to keep up.
It is a complex and dynamic landscape, and that's precisely why it's
Mhm.
so crucial to stay informed,
Right.
to engage in critical thinking about what it all means for you.
Yeah.
For example, we talked about trade wars and protectionism,
Mm.
but what are the underlying factors driving this shift
Yeah.
towards more nationalistic economic policies?
Is it purely about economic competition, or are there deeper geopolitical motivations at play?
That's a great question, and it's a question worth pondering because
Yeah.
understanding the motivations behind these geopolitical moves
Right.
can help you anticipate potential future developments.
Okay.
It's like a game of chess. You need to think several moves ahead
Right.
to stay ahead of the game.
So it's not enough to just react to the headlines.
No.
We need to develop this deeper understanding of the bigger picture, the forces that are shaping these changes.
Precisely. And here's another important aspect to consider. How might this interplay
Yeah.
between geopolitics and economics affect different regions of the world differently?
Right. Will some countries benefit more than others from this shift?
Yeah.
Will we see new alliances forming?
Right.
New power centers emerging on the global stage?
These are all questions that are still unfolding before us.
Yeah.
And as we gather more information,
Yeah.
as we see how these trends play out in real time, we'll continue to share our insights and analysis with you.
So stay tuned, folks. This deep dive is just the beginning of our exploration.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon with more updates and insights on the global economy and what it all means for you, our listener.
And in the meantime, I encourage you to stay curious.
Yeah,
Keep learning and don't be afraid to ask those tough questions.
that's right. Because in a world of constant change, the most valuable asset you possess is your ability to adapt,
Yeah.
to learn, and to evolve.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to turn the focus back to you, our listener.
Okay.
We've discussed a lot of these high-level concepts,
Right.
global trends, but let's bring it down to earth, to your everyday life.
Because it's all well and good to talk about trade wars and services trade
Right.
in the abstract.
Yeah.
But how does this actually play out
Right.
in your local community, in your own backyard?
That's a fantastic point, bringing it home, so to speak.
Exactly, because while these global forces might feel distant and abstract,
Mm-hmm.
they have very real consequences
Yeah.
right here, right now, in the places we live and work.
Think about the businesses in your town,
Right.
your city, your region.
Yeah.
Are they reliant on global supply chains?
Hmm.
Are they feeling the pinch of these trade tensions we've
Yeah.
been discussing?
Or, on the flip side, are there local businesses that are actually benefiting from these trends?
That's a great point.
Maybe they're producing goods or services that are now more competitive
Right.
because of tariffs on imports or the shift towards friendshoring.
That's a great observation. It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
this monolithic story of winners and losers.
Right.
There are always nuances and complexities to how economic shifts impact different communities.
So here's a challenge for you, our listener.
Okay.
Go out and observe. Be a detective in your own community.
I like that.
Talk to business owners. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to people in different industries.
Mm-hmm.
See how these global trends are playing out in your own backyard,
Yeah.
in your own unique context.
And then armed with that knowledge, think about what you can do
Right.
to actively participate in this shifting economic landscape.
Yeah.
Can you support local businesses that might be struggling to adapt?
Mm-hmm.
Can you invest in companies that are poised to benefit from these changes?
So it's about being proactive, about taking control of your economic destiny,
Absolutely.
rather than just passively reacting to the headlines.
In a world of uncertainty, the most empowering thing you can do is stay informed, be adaptable, and be prepared for whatever comes next.
And remember, this is an ongoing conversation.
Yes, it is.
We'll continue to explore these themes,
Mhm.
these trends, and these challenges in future deep dives.
Absolutely. So stay tuned,
Yeah.
stay curious, and stay engaged
Yeah.
because the global economy is constantly evolving, and your understanding of it is your key to navigating the future.
Now let's take a moment to transition to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the big picture trends.
Mm-hmm.
We've zoomed in on some specific examples.
Right.
We've challenged you to think about how these global forces
Yeah.
are impacting your local community.
And now in this final part, we're going to leave you with some concrete takeaways,
Okay.
some actionable insights that you can apply to your own life and your own decision making.
Sounds good.
So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Okay, so we've explored this global economic outlook. We've zoomed in on some potential impacts for you.
Yeah.
And even challenged you to become like an economic detective in your own community.
Absolutely.
But now we want to leave you with something tangible, right? Something
Yeah.
you can actually put into practice.
Exactly, because knowledge is power, but only if you know how to wield it.
I like that wielding knowledge.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so consider this a call to action, a challenge to take all this information and make it work for you.
Make it work for you, yeah.
All right, so we've talked about the global economy becoming increasingly fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
But let's bring that concept down to earth.
Okay.
What could it mean for your investments?
That's a great question. It's easy to get caught up in these global trends, but as an investor, you need to think strategically about where to put your money.
Right.
This fragmentation could mean a shift away from those,
Okay.
traditional global investments.
So instead of blindly chasing returns in emerging markets,
Right.
are you saying investors might need to look closer to home?
Precisely domestic companies, especially those that are, less reliant on these global supply chains,
Right.
might become more attractive.
Okay.
Or consider businesses that are catering to this growing trend of friendshoring. They could be poised for some significant growth.
It's like the old adage, invest in what you know.
Exactly.
But in this case, it's also about investing in what's
Yeah.
becoming more important
More
in
important.
this new economic reality.
Right.
Okay, so let's shift gears slightly here.
Sure.
We discussed the rise of services trade
Mm-hmm.
as a potential silver lining.
Yeah.
How can you, as an individual, capitalize on that trend?
Well, think about the skills that are becoming increasingly valuable
Yeah.
in a service-driven economy.
Give us the inside scoop.
Well, we touched on them earlier,
Yeah.
critical thinking, communication, adaptability, creativity.
Right.
These are transferable skills applicable across many professions.
So even if you're not planning to become a software developer tomorrow,
Right.
honing these skills
Absolutely.
could make you more competitive in the job market.
Yes. It's about future-proofing your career.
It's about investing in yourself, the best investment you could make.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of lifelong learning. The
Wow.
digital landscape is constantly evolving, so staying ahead of the curve is essential.
Yeah.
There are tons of online resources,
Right.
courses, and communities where you can acquire new skills and knowledge.
And with the growth of digitally delivered services,
Yes.
the opportunities for entrepreneurship are exploding.
Couldn't agree more. If you've ever dreamed of starting your own business, now might be the perfect time.
Yeah.
To explore those ideas, think about the problems you see around you,
Hmm.
the gaps in the market. Could you create a service
Right.
that solves those problems, leverages technology, and reaches a global audience?
So we've gone from unpacking these global trends to empowering individual action.
Absolutely.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind of information.
Yeah, it has.
But I think we've equipped our listener with some valuable insights
I hope so.
and hopefully some inspiration.
When inspiration is
We've
way.
only just scratched the surface, but we've provided a framework for understanding
Yeah,
these complex economic forces
right.
and how they might impact you.
It's a starting point.
This is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah,
We'll continue to monitor these trends and
absolutely.
bring you the latest insights and analysis.
Yep.
But for now, it's time for you to go out there and make sense of it all in your own context.
Exactly. Observe your surroundings, engage with your community,
Mm-hmm.
and don't be afraid to experiment. This is your opportunity to shape your own economic future.
So that wraps up our deep dive into the global economy. We hope you've enjoyed the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Feel empowered to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Yes.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic
Yeah.
that's sure to pique your interest.
All right.
Until then, farewell.